I'm Lima.
I'm Mitch Thompson.
I'm Li-Brubacher.
I'm Saimoto.
And I'm Julian Li-Brubacher.
And this is our Commerce 100 group film project, and we are group number 8. So for our group project, we decided to do our project on the power of crowd. The power of crowd is defined as when people decide what is appropriate and base their actions off what other people do. For our group project, we wanted to see if we could harness the power of crowd to influence someone into giving or not giving someone else a high five.
Our method used to prove our hypothesis was to randomly high-five three people in 3 different situations. Our baseline, being our first situation, was to isolate one individual without them knowing and have an experimenter casually approach them and ask for a high five and see what their reactions is without having a crowd around them. After completing our baseline test, we put them in a second situation and added the members and integrated themselves with an individual, forming a group. We did this by starting a conversation with the individual and making them feel comfortable as they walked with us. As they walked together, we had another experimenter approach the group and ask for a high five. Everyone in the group would purposely decline the high five, and we wanted to observe whether or not the test subject was influenced by the crowd and would receive or accept the high five. For our third experiment, similar to the second, we formed a crowd including one random individual along with our test group, and in this test we would accept the high five and see if this had an effect on whether or not the one stranger would accept or decline.
Upon writing our hypothesis, we collectively thought our baseline would have a relatively even split between people who accepted and declined the high fives. We also predicted that upon introducing our respected crowds, the individual would be much more inclined to go along with what the crowd did. For example, we expected that an increase in high fives returned by the test subject would occur when the crowd accepts high fives. In contrast, we expected a decrease in high fives returned by the test subjects when the crowd declines high fives. These outcomes would show how the decisions of others, even strangers, can unconsciously affect logical decision-making of an individual. Our group believes that if the experiment was carried out properly, the possibilities previously stated will result from our experiment.
Before we started our experiment, we had to consider any possible problems that could happen from results. First, our sample space was relatively small, as we only did 20 people for each, and as a result of this, it could have been skewed results. Also, some individuals were distracted, for example on their phone or listening to music, yawning, and they could have missed our cue to receive a high five. Also, since we couldn't use all 3 variations of tests on each subject, we couldn't observe whether or not how they would have reacted in each different situation.
As seen in the graph, in our baseline test we found that 13 out of 20 subjects accepted our high fives. In our second, when we as the crowd declined the high fives, the number of people who gave us high fives dropped only to 4 out of 20. This is a 45% decrease in high five success from our baseline. In our final test, we as a crowd accepted the high fives. The test subjects returned 18 out of 20 high fives. This is a 25% increase from our baseline and a 70% increase from our second testing.
As our results show, when the crowd declined a high five offer, the test subject tended to decline the high five offer as well. When the crowd accepted a high five offer, the crowd was much more inclined to give a high five. With these results, we can conclude that an individual's high five return rates fluctuated as a result of the crowd around them's decision to give or not give a high five. The results from our experiment helped to confirm our hypothesis that a crowd's decision can influence an individual's behavior.
Yes.
Ta-da!
High five.